Hello and welcome to this video series on the Indian Express news analysis. So today's date is 31st October of 2018 and here we discuss all the important articles from the editorial and the opinion page of Indian Express. So let's see what are the articles that we're going to discuss today. Before that, if you have not subscribed to my channel, please subscribe because here you get daily The Hindu analysis along with Indian Express analysis in English and Hindi. Also, if you go to the playlist, you will find lectures on polity and economics also. So here, my name is Akash Raj and you can read about me right here. The first article that we're going to discuss is about the India and Japan relation right here on the left side. So basically here we're going to discuss about the recent development that has happened, the recent agreements and what relation do we share with Japan. In my previous videos also we have discussed this in detail. So here I'll be telling you all the recent developments. This is very important articles. As you know, during the winter season, what happens is Delhi actually faces a lot of air pollution. There are various reasons for it. You can credit it for the vehicular pollution that happens, the construction activity which goes on around the city, also the overpopulation that Delhi has. And the one of the for major reason is actually the stubble burning that happens in Haryana and Punjab. That is basically the crop residue is actually burned in these regions, and this flame actually moves over the NCR region during the southwest monsoon retreat. And here you will get one more dimension to it. Here we're talking about the Aravalli Range. I'll show you on the map where Aravalli Range is. So these are basically mountain and hills found in Gujarat, Rajasthan and Haryana. What is happening is there are a lot of mining activities happening here. So what it leads to is the amount of deserts or the area of deserts is actually increasing. And that's the reason why dust storms which actually created here moves towards the Delhi or NCR region. So we'll discuss this using the map, and also you can actually relate it to some other incidences. Like you can take it an example for the Kerala floods. Why did that happen? One of the prominent reason was the degradation of the Western Ghats. Lot of mining and construction activity was going on in the Western Ghats. That's the sole reason why the flood was in control, because of the deforestation that you have done. The same trend can be seen right over here. We'll discuss this in detail. This article is not so important, guys, but this is very important. This is about the Ayushman Bharat, so National Health Protection Scheme. So how is it going to be implemented? What are the challenges that we'll face? How is it different from the already existing schemes? We'll discuss that in detail. This is very important. This is about right to education. As you understand that this was actually an act coming up in 2009, but it was a fundamental right ever since 2005. It comes under the 21A article, where it has been said that if you are from the age of 7 to 14, you'll get free and fair education in India. Also, you'll understand why do we need actually a law to actually give free education to everybody. We'll try to discuss all these things right here. This article is written by our Pradhan Mantri Prime Minister Narendra Modi. So he's telling about the Statue of Unity. He's telling about the contribution of Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel. As you know that in 1947, when the responsibility was given to Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel to actually accumulate all these princely states into one nation, his responsibility was to actually negotiate all those say the agreements, all those things that was required in order to keep all these states together, because the whole aim for him was to integrate the whole of India. And he was also known as the Bismarck of India, because as you know, Bismarck actually united Italy the same way. Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel did his work, and all the work that he has done, all his skills that he actually had, he came from his work which he has done during the independence. Even the Bardoli movement, the cooperatives that he have formed. Yesterday we discussed about the dairy production, how the cooperatives came up. The Amul that we see right now has its origin somewhere in the British era, when actually the Bardoli, basically the Satyagraha happened. And also there, what happened was Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel a major role, because he's a man of basically trust and integrity. Because a lot of freedom fighters also told her that he just doesn't make decisions, he also implements them. Because of his this nature, he was actually given this responsibility to integrate whole of princely states into one country. So all these things are written in this article. So this article is not so important. This is basically comparison of the ancient times with the present education system. Not so important. Here you will see like anecdotes of Mahabharat, where you can take a cue of in vitro fertilization when it comes to the Kauravs, and also about we actually built the first aeroplane. All those things are discussed here, not so important. And today's quote is, guys, don't watch the clock, do what it does, keep going. So you need to understand sometimes in life what happens is you stop actually doing what you actually love because you think that it's not making a difference. But you need to understand, you need to work like a clock. How? You need to keep moving. If you stop moving, your growth actually stop reducing. If you stop growing, then you cannot actually aim for success. So if in order to be successful, keep moving in the way that you are moving. So let's begin the discussion, guys. So the first article is about the India and Japan relation. So the first recent agreement that we have actually signed is about the connectivity to the Northeast, because as you know, we have a policy for Act East policy. So in order to actually give it a boost, what we are going to do is use the technology of Japan and try to connect the Northeast with the rest of India, via which we will also be available to the ASEAN nations. This is the first thing. And the second thing, as you know, that there is a high-speed railway line project which is going to be established between Mumbai to Ahmedabad. So right now, this agreement has been signed, but there is a lot of problem when it comes to investment, because money is not coming in. That's the reason why this project is getting delayed. So in this recent agreement, what we have signed is that we are going to infuse a lot of investment and infrastructure development so that this is done quickly. The third thing is we are going to have a partnership when it's come to digital partnership. We are going to talk about the artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, how we can improve the governance system, how we can improve the machinery which are already existing in our set of scenarios in India. Also, when it comes to the military context, what we are going to discuss is, because as you know, these ships and vessels which go in Indian Ocean, South China Sea, all these actually collect a lot of data across the oceans. So if a Japan vessel is actually moving from one place to another, they collect a lot of data intelligence. So they will give us this intelligence and be sharing with the same with Japan. So this sharing will be happen after this particular agreement. Also, you need to understand, after we have started talking, becoming a dialogue partner with Japan ever since 2006, our trade have not so improved drastically, because our trade is basically $15 billion, but which is very less than the $20 billion mark that we have set for every year. And if you compare the same with China and Japan does not share a very common good history, and also not even a good relation right now, but they have a trade of more than $300 billion. So we need to take a cue here and actually understand what are the implementation challenges, because we have a lot of agreement with Japan. The only problem is the implementation here. Once we get through it, our trade will increase. That will improve a lot of interaction that we have with Japan. We can use the BRICS actually challenges, like we can talk from government to government, business of India talking to business of Japan, people of India talking to people of Japan. That way, if we try to connect our trade, our cultural ties will actually more improve. We can use that strategy of diplomacy. The third thing is about the amphibian aircraft. Japan has a very good amphibian aircraft, and we are actually planning to buy it. But the problem is we are unable to negotiate on the prices. That's the whole reason why it is also getting delayed. So because our prime minister is on a visit, he's going to try to negotiate on the aircraft or deal also. Moving forward, this is about the pollution which is happening in the NCR region. So around this New Delhi, so what you see is the amount of air pollution usually increases during the winter season. I have already told you the reasons for it. It can be the vehicle pollution, the construction activity, the stubble burning. Here we're going to discuss about the deterioration or the degradation of Aravalli Range is one of the reason. So that's the reason what happened is Supreme Court has ordered the Rajasthan government to actually notify the Central Empowered Committee, which actually looks into the forest matter, to actually identify all these illegal mining sites which is happening in Aravalli Range. Because what happens is when you do that, if you see the map here, you'll see Aravalli Range passing through Gujarat, Rajasthan and Haryana. So if you see this desert, Thar desert, this will extend if you actually start deteriorating Aravalli Range. What happens here is when the greenery reduces, the chances of dust storms to happen will increase. Whenever dust storms happen, this will move towards the NCR region, and that can be one of the possible reasons why we see air pollution in Delhi. So in order to understand this more clearly, you would have understood about something known as Raisina dialogue. So Raisina is basically a hill which is a small extension of Aravalli Range itself, which extends to the Delhi region. So that's the whole reason why we are concentrating on Aravalli Range when it comes to the pollution increase in the Delhi. And right now the pollution AQI index says it's 337, which is very severe and compared to other cities within India. Also moving forward, this is about the Ayushman Bharat scheme, also known as National Health Protection Scheme. So it was actually being brought up in the budget. So we actually know how many people are getting catered under this, but how is it different from Rashtriya Swasthya Bima Yojana, because it was earlier implemented by UPA government. It is basically an improvement on it. How am I saying is an improvement? First thing is there will be no requirement to actually renew your ID every year, because you can use your Aadhaar or basically ration card to actually prove your identity, and if you're a beneficiary you will get into it. So, and the next thing is basically you can get these services or the medication from any empaneled hospital. And panel here means some of the hospitals are actually selected where the workers here are actually trained for actually giving these services to particular beneficiaries. So that's the reason of empaneled hospital, you can get the medication. Also the amount amount that has been paid by the government will have increased from 30,000 to 5 lakh while moving from RSBV to National Health Protection Scheme. These are the improvement that we have done by bringing in this scheme, but there are a lot of implementation challenges. Because if you take an example of states like Kerala, Tamil Nadu, they have invested a lot of money in healthcare and education. That's the reason you'll see there are a lot of hospitals coming up in these states. So in order to basically implement this scheme, you'll see that supply of hospitals here is very much. But if you compare the same thing with Northeast, the amount of hospitals that you'll find here are very less. So there you'll get the supply demand changes. Why? Because the supply of hospitals are very limited here, but the demand will increase. Why? Because now more and more people will go to hospitals for even small things. That is a very good thing. But what the problem is here is, if you have brought in a scheme like Ayushman Bharat, what you need to work on is also simultaneously build on the infrastructure of other hospitals. Also try to improve the standards and medication that is being given in the public hospitals. If you do that, then this will actually be a very much beneficial to every citizen of our country. Also, you need to concentrate on the quality, because you understand that public health sectors and the private health sectors are different when it comes to quality. In order to bring them apart with them, what they can do is take the benchmark from the private sector and put it for the public sector. Because you need to understand that as an India, as an economy, we cannot just depend on the private sectors, because at the end of the day they are here to get profits, and it is the role of the government to come in and actually provide what are essential goods to or services to the citizens of any country. And one thing you need to understand here is, because of this scheme, what happens is all the insurance companies which are involved in it, they will actually not work in a good faith. Why am I saying this? Because they know that the government has backing for it, and they will recapitalize them. They will infuse a lot of money in case they face any losses. That is not a good initiative, because you are actually giving monopoly to some of the insurance companies over the others. So even if we, in the previous videos, we have compared this Ayushman Bharat with Obamacare. Obamacare is basically a similar scheme which happens in USA, but you will understand that the amount of money that has been infused in USA is quite a lot, but the amount of people that they cater is very less in US compared to India. So the next thing that we're going to discuss is about the right to education. So this act came up in 2009. So the question that we need to first ask is, why do we need an act? Why don't we just understand that health and education is very important, and we should give this irrespective of an act is available or not? Because many countries are giving it without an act also. The reason why we cannot do it in India is because as you know, political parties actually invest in ideas which are short term in nature, because you should get immediate results. Like, say an example of farm loan waiver. So if a farmer has taken a loan, and if you waive it off, what happens is in the next election the farmer will vote back for you, because they know that every time you come into power, you will actually waive all the loans. So you get the short term benefit of actually one action. But when it comes to education, you actually giving education to a child, it will take 10 to 12 years or maybe 18 years for him to actually become a voter, and only then you will get the beneficial of actually starting a education institution or getting investment in education. So that's the whole reason why political parties do not actually concentrate on education when it comes to their election manifestos. But we need to understand that education is very important. That's the same reason why we bring in a law. But the law will not work itself. It has to be implemented, and the spirit of it will only come when the executives are working to their best. You need to understand here that there are various reports. You can take an example of Pratham report, which has told again and again that the learning outcome of these students within India is not so good. A 5th standard student is unable to solve a 3rd standard maths problem. A student of 7th standard cannot locate New Delhi on the map of India. There are a lot of issues like that. So what we are trying to find out here is, we are more and more concentrating on the input. The focusing on input means we are focusing on the infrastructure and all teachers, but what we have forgotten is we are not actually screening the output. There is actually no exam which actually tells you whether the output or the attributes that are required for a student to actually pass from 6th standard to 7th standard are these. If you're not naming it properly, then there will be always vagueness, and there won't be any quality when it comes to the promotion that you're doing for a particular student. Also, there has been a bone of contention on no detention policy, because the reason why we have no detention policy is to reduce the amount of dropouts, because we know that a lot of girls and a lot of people or students who are coming from weaker section, they actually give a dropout while studying in these institutions. So in order to curtail that, what we have done is, there is no detention policy under the section 16 of this particular act. So it says that no child will actually be held or expelled from the school. The whole reason is to reduce a dropout, but this actually is a compromise on the quality, because even if you have not studied or any learned anything, you are actually getting promoted to the next class. So this will always be a controversial whether to have detention policy or not. So this is under the supervision right now for the parliament, because it's this amendment is going to be happening this session or so. And the next thing that we need to concentrate is on the teachers, because as we know that the amount of doctors and teachers that we have in our country is very less. So if you want a new profession to join in, you either should become a teacher or a doctor, because teacher right now is in a deficiency. Why do I say that? Because in most of the government schools, what happens is the amount of teachers and the student ratio is like 1:1,000. Like one teacher is handling 1,000 students, and that's just not possible. In order to curtail that, what we can do is we can bring in new training institutions for teachers. We can give more and more incentives to teachers, so that more and more people are getting into this particular education sector. That is one of the way. Also, you need to understand that if you want to become a superpower economically, you need to understand that you need to invest in health, education, and the skill of people. And that's exactly what has been done by Japan and South Korea. We can take an example from them and do the same. We need to provide education to every individual which actually is from India, because you need to understand here very clearly, because we have this 25% quota even in private education institution, where it has to be given to the weaker sections. But there are a lot of issues there, because there are some loopholes in the system. That's the reason why not every beneficiary is getting admission in the first standard of private educations and even the public ones. So you need to first inspect all those loopholes and trying to change them so that it's for the beneficiary of everybody. So that's all for today, guys. Let's just revise everything that we have studied. The first thing that we studied about the right to education, how we need to understand that just bringing in a law or basically an act is not a panacea or basically a ramban. You need to implement them properly. You need to investigate all the loopholes. Only then will it get implemented to the full efficiency. The next thing we discussed is about the Ayushman Bharat, also known as National Health Protection Scheme. We understood how is it different from the earlier schemes, also known as Rashtriya Swasthya Bima Yojana, how is it different from it? And then we moved forward to the reasons for pollution in NCR region, the Aravalli Range deterioration that is happening, and followed which we talked about the new developments in India and Japan relation. Also, we talked about the Statue of Unity, what is the role of Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel when it comes to uniting all the princely states, along with the cooperative that he have formed when it comes to farmer union, dairy union. So all these things we discussed. So I hope this helped you a lot. If you liked it, please subscribe to my channel and share it as much as you can. Thank you and have a nice day. Jai Hind.